Could you tell us quickly, just give us an overview on what exactly this law does?
Well, what this bill does, Senate Bill 195, or the Sunshine Portal Act as it's called, requires the state to develop, operate, and maintain a free, publicly accessible internet database that contains a lot of information on state budgets, expenditures, and other financial records, and just basically the business of state government.
Do other states have something similar to this?
They do. We're not plowing new ground on this. Other states have done this. In fact, the really good thing for us, when we started to develop ideas on this, other states like Missouri and Oklahoma sent people here to work with our Department of Information Technologies to share their best practices with us. And they saved us a lot of time and trouble. They told us what doesn't work. They showed us what did work. And we were pretty quickly able to get up a demonstration model of this and better understand how it could be done. So we are not the first.
Why did you consider this to be so important?
Well, again, I think it's a sign of the times with what the problems that we're seeing in state government and some of the problems that have developed because of lack of oversight and transparency. I think that all of a sudden this legislation became more and more vitally important. I mean, as you begin to create more transparency, more oversight follows. And I think that we've seen in many cases in this state and nationally that we need to have more transparency and oversight, and the Sunshine Portal is an excellent way. You know, 10, 15 years ago we couldn't do this. I mean, government has exponentially expanded where it's so difficult for anybody to get their arms around it, but technology has afforded us an opportunity now to begin to bring this process back so the public can begin to engage in some oversight and begin to perhaps be more involved in the process. I mean, that's the way it was intended to work when we founded this country years ago. And hopefully technology can get us back to that where the public can be more involved in these processes and hold their elected officials accountable.
Privately, did some of your colleagues come up to you and say, here's the problems like that, I don't want this, and here's why?
Well, you know, when I ran this bill last year, I was a freshman legislator. You know, this is the first session I ran this thing. And I think there was a lot of angst and anxiety when this was first proposed. I think there are some people in state government and perhaps in the legislature that were very comfortable with the way things have been working all along. And had there not been the problems that we've seen in government here in the last couple of years, we probably still would be trying to fight and pull something like this through. But I think we got to a threshold point here now where I think it would have been really difficult for legislators not to come on board with this, because you'd have to answer some very difficult questions as to why not.
Did you get some resistance privately, or did you hear from other people saying, who's this freshman guy trying to plow this thing through?
Well, you know, when you get up there, you know, people are trying to size you up and trying to figure you out. I know that this was the first bill that I had run when I got up there, and when this thing, I was very excited when this thing flew through the Senate. It got through the 2 Senate committees. The Senate unanimously approved it. You know, as a freshman, I thought this thing was on its way, and when it got killed in the first House committee it got to, you know, being a new guy, I was crushed. You know, I was fit to be tied. I didn't understand, you know, how anybody could oppose this. But of course, all these other factors are at work, and you know, I began to realize what was involved here. And one of the things you realize when you get up there is, you know, I'll look at some legislation that somebody else will propose, and I'll look at it and say, this is just great. There's absolutely nobody that could oppose this. Come to find out, it's the 10th or 11th session that has been proposed, and the reality is, oftentimes legislation takes several passes through the process to get approved. And in the case of Senate Bill 195, the Sunshine Portal Act, we were fortunate that it only took 2 sessions to really get it done. And actually, this bill that did pass this time was a better bill than the one before. We had more time to really develop it, flesh it out. We got a lot of really smart people involved in it. We're able to answer a lot of the questions that we didn't have good answers for the first time.
So if you ran it to a voter on the street and the voter said, okay, you know, the legislature passes all kinds of laws and every law is supposed to be great, what does this mean to the average Joe, the average Jane?
You bet. If let's say you had a question about a particular agency in state government, you know, how much money are they allocated? How are they spending it? or state contracts. Let's say you had some questions about how some state contracts are written and how much money is coming in the whole process. With this user-friendly website, a lay person that can operate a computer can actually go into this website and you can start clicking on tabs, and it's very, very user-friendly, where you can begin to drill down and get very, very specific information on just about anything you want. I think the other really important point, though, to remember is that this is not, the creation of this Sunshine Portal is not a static event or a static process. This is going to evolve over time as the databases become more easily integrated, where things can flow into this site, you know, in real time, and as technology improves. But the sample that we saw, the demonstration model that we set up, modeled on some of the other states, it's very user-friendly. And there was a time in the past where only, you know, technical experts could drill down and find a lot of this. A lot of it was available publicly, but boy, you had to have a lot of time and a lot of expertise to get to it. This is going to be very, very easy for lay people, you know, to drill into and get answers to their questions.
When will they be able to access it?
Well, October 1st of this year, the state is required to have the architecture and the databases available to be put into the system, and then this is required to be up and running by July 1st, 2011. So it's a process of some time. There's some things that have to be done to get this thing ready. But actually, I have found out that it's moving along a lot quicker than we had thought, and we may, you know, even do better than those deadlines.
Such as?
Well, you know, the Department of Information Technologies has been tasked with doing this, and apparently they have brought in some people who are, you know, experts in this and have done it before, and it's saved us a lot of time. They've been able to assist us in developing this. I haven't got any new timeline yet, but I've been very impressed with how quickly they seem to be moving through it. Because a lot of work was done on the front end of this to get it ready to present to the legislature. They did create a sample of this, and so we've got a good start on this.
What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, they'll begin to create some models of this. You know, we'll have to, you know, sample them, see if they work. We're going to need to tweak them and develop them. One thing, a point that we made when we were developing this is, I can't wait to get this thing out there to the public, because we are going to get a lot of feedback back, and we are all looking forward to that, and we are expecting to make the system better over time based on what we get back from the public. You know, we may have something set up and we realize we missed something, or it isn't an easy link to get to the next step. So this thing will be a work in progress. This will be changing all the time, and we're hoping, you know, organizations like the Rio Grande Foundation and others, and just the general public, will be part of this process that will help us improve the system.
Do you see a day when all committee meetings, everything will be out there, open access to the public?
I do, and I very much look forward to it. And there have been some other things that have been done recently that are moving us in that direction. This is a component of more open and transparent government. There are other things that are going on together that are really, you know, lifting the lid off of this so that the public can be more engaged. And again, like I said before, hold their elected officials' feet to the fire.
Last question for you, unless Paul's got one. Why are you such a believer in open and transparent government?
Well, you know, Thomas Jefferson once said, and I always keep this quote handy, he said, "Particulars on government expenditures and taxation should be plain and available to all if the oversight by the people is to be effective." That was one of the general premises of this government. And that's one reason this government was formed, for the people, the citizens, to be involved in the processes. And government has just grown so much that it's become impossible for people to really begin to lay people to understand and have any kind of oversight. This gets us there. And I think the other thing is, when you're a freshman legislator, you get up there, you know, you're a little naive, I suppose, about some things, and you haven't been there long enough to have just accepted some things, maybe been in place for years. So some of these things become more obvious, I think, to you when you're new. And I was just in a unique opportunity where I was able to move on something like that relatively quickly, with some help from some veteran legislators who helped me so much with this. But I think when you're new, you see things and you say, how in the world, you know, why don't we? I guess I haven't been there long enough to be a part of that process yet that would be leery of this. And a lot of the freshman legislators that I worked with, we all, you know, they were very much on board. And this was a very bipartisan effort. You know, this was across party lines. People on both sides were helping, and it was just the right thing to do at the right time.